Hey, this is the C&D channel. I'm Chris, this is Dave, and this is MMA for you. And we'll be talking about the Strikeforce Houston card that just happened. If you want to leave any questions for us about MMA, you can just go to our email, the C&D channel at gmail.com, or you can leave a reply on the bottom of this cast. Before we get to this, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Go Business 123. Please visit the website www.gobusiness123.com for your needs in resume building, business consultation, and job postings. For only $19.99, Go Business 123 will provide you with resume enhancement and resume building. They'll put your resume on their site for employers to see, and they'll provide a 15-minute mock interview that will help you get a job and help you with your job interviews. Now, let's get to it.
Chris, where does Kimmo go from here? Is this loss good or bad for him?
You know, the thing with losses in MMA is that it's usually good for people. I know there's guys like Todd Duffy when he lost to Mike Russo by like what was more or less a miracle punch. He said he could have learned the same things from a win as he did a loss, and I tend to agree with him on that front just because he was dominating the fight so much. This isn't the case. This was a pretty back and forth fight. I think being undefeated definitely puts your pressure to keep your undefeated marks. I know that when GSP lost to Matt Serra, GSP after losing, I mean, he became a little more cautious, but he did in the end become a better fighter. I do feel that this loss will really accentuate his wrestling even more. He was striking a lot, which isn't bad. He's not a terrible striker, but against a guy like Cavalcante, has really good Muay Thai and great knees. Obviously, there's still work to be done. You know, he did his Roy Jones thing with one hand down, one hand to the chin. You know, and didn't quite work out. Obviously, he got TKO'd. But I do think this loss will help him. Just help him reassess, help him use his wrestling more, and fix his flaws. As far as where he goes from here, a rematch against Gegard Mousasi would be pretty interesting. I'd like to see him fight Dan Henderson. That'd be pretty cool. If they want to give him a good win, they can give him like Mike Kyle, who's actually coming off a win streak, if I'm not mistaken. So there's some good fights for him. I mean, heck, if he wants to fight Sokuju, he can fight Sokuju. I believe Sokuju's fought for Strikeforce before. I'd probably go with the rematch with Mousasi. That would be pretty interesting. A big fight would be Dan Henderson, but if you want him to win and get a guaranteed win, I'd be inclined to give him maybe not Mike Kyle, because Mike Kyle did beat Cavalcante one time, so I wouldn't actually put those two together just because you lose a potential guy that could fight Cavalcante. I know that Mo won't fight Babalu, so I guess go with the Mousasi fight, unless there's some other 205er that they want to feed him and build his confidence back and let him get the win. I don't really think he needs it, to be honest. I mean, he could fight like a Bongo Humphrey or something. I wouldn't want to do that fight because Humphrey's actually a prospect. So, and I don't think they need to rebuild his confidence. I don't think that he needs a 2-minute fight, really. So, I'd probably just give him the rematch with Mousasi.
Okay. Where does Rafael Cavalcante go from here? Do you think that he will be a long reigning Strikeforce light heavyweight champion?
Well, the thing with Cavalcante is he looked great. I don't know how else to say it. He just looked really good. I mean, the way I saw the fight was like this. King Mo tried to wrestle him, and take him down. but Cavalcante would have none of it. I mean, he'd either stuff takedowns, or else if he got taken down, he'd get right back up. He looked like a giant compared to King Mo too. So I gotta wonder how much his size played into it. I've seen King Mo take down bigger guys though, so I don't know if it's that much of a factor, like the size. It could be, it could not be. It's tough to say. As far as him being a long reigning champion, there's a chance. Obviously, there's good fights for him. Babalu is a really good fight for him. Masasi's a really good fight for him. Dan Henderson's another really good fight for him. A rematch with Mike Kyle makes sense. And down the line, if Mo gets a couple wins here and there, a rematch with Mo would actually work too. The fight was pretty back and forth, actually. I really like the fight. As far as who's next, I'm gonna have to go with Babalu. Honestly, that's who I'd like to, who I think deserves to fight him, just because Babalu's coming off a win over Robbie Lawler. I know it's at 195, but still, it is a good win. And they were supposed to fight, actually. My rematch with Mike Kyle would actually make sense, just because Mike Kyle was coming off a win over Bonga Humphrey, so that wouldn't be a bad fight either. The one, stylistically, I'd like to see him fight Masasi. I think stand-up wise, really interesting stand-up battle right there. Definitely want to see that fight somewhere in the near future. For sure. And I think it'll happen, Masasi still has a lot of fights under Strikeforce. Cavalcante doesn't look like he's going anywhere. Definitely this was Cavalcante's biggest win of his MMA career. So yeah, which is really funny. Strikeforce's 205 division isn't that big in comparison to the UFC's, who has like all the top 10, maybe even the top 15 light heavyweights out there. And now there's actually now that Cavalcante won, there's actually talk of Strikeforce's light heavyweight division. So definitely very interesting going forward, especially with this division. Middleweight's their like money division actually, but it's very interesting that there's actually some buzz around their 205 division now. Like I said though, I'd probably go with the match with Babalu versus Cavalcante. Very interesting fight. Have to give the edge to Cavalcante, but Babalu is definitely a grizzled veteran for sure. So Babalu could win it just as easily, but I'd have to give the edge to Cavalcante.
Okay. Where does Jacare go from here? Do you think that he will be a long-reigning Strikeforce middleweight champion? And what do you think of his performance?
One thing about Jacare's performance, I was somewhat disappointed and somewhat not that he didn't go for more takedowns. Granted, this is my theory. I believe that both thought this was a 5-round fight. They need to conserve energy. Tim Kennedy has really pretty good takedown defense. And if Jacare's going for takedowns, he's going to waste a lot of energy. The 1 or 2 times he did go for takedowns, they did get stuffed. So, and he was outstriking Tim Kennedy with more power shots. As far as his performance goes, it was mainly a stand-up fight, and his stand-up looked good, but it was one of those things where you have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner and a guy like Tim Kennedy who's just like an all-around guy. He's mainly a clinch guy, doing what I call like bad kickboxing in a way. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't like a terrible fight or anything. It kind of was a snoozer for me. Not to say that he shouldn't work on his hands, I think as far as his performance goes, it's obvious his hands are and his stand-up is improving. So that's the thing. But yeah, as far as, I'd like to see him take more of his fights to the ground. His jiu-jitsu is some of the best in MMA. That's the thing. And the other thing with his performance too is that, like, I didn't really feel that he is putting everything all together yet. You know, even his striking combinations aren't the greatest. I see a lot of 1-2s, just a lot of like single right hands. The one time he did go for a takedown, he didn't, you know, throw a couple, you know, he didn't introduce it with like some jabs or like a 1-2 takedown. So he's still in the building block stages right now. In a way, he's still a prospect in that way. As far as being one reigning champion, there's a lot of good fights for him. I do feel he's more than capable of of at least one title defense, maybe 2. I mean, there's a lot of good fights for him. Like I said, Kung Lee would be really cool. That'd just be a really cool fight. Luke Rockhold, Robbie Lawler even. Diaz, if he wants to go up, would be pretty interesting. I don't really want to see that fight. But, yeah, there's definitely a good amount of fights for him. So, just go to part 2 after the jump. Thanks.